How's it going, everyone? Mr. Leva here with your second set of Cornell notes. This one's going to be on-demand writing. Now, what on-demand writing it is, it's whenever you come into a classroom and a teacher gives you a prompt and maybe even a selection, like a reading selection, and then they give you a set amount of time to actually write the essay that addresses that prompt. We see it in the high school level a lot with standardized tests, whether it's things like the NeoPARC assessment, which is the Common Core State Standards assessment, that we're going to be having starting this year. We also see it with ACTs and SATs. At the college and university level, we see it a lot more frequently because this is what you're going to see every time you have things like midterms and final exams. You'll maybe do some matching stuff, maybe do some short answers, and then after that, they'll more often than not give you a timed essay. So again, this is going to be very, very important for us, essentially preparing for all of those different things that are going to be very, very important in our academic lives. So we need to make sure that we're doing a couple things. And first off, simply developing the skills that we need to actually complete each task and actually get our essays completed in time. The second thing that we're going to have to do is just practice, practice, practice. So we're going to get started with this, with these Cornell notes. Now, if you haven't already, make sure that you're setting up your Cornell notes. And again, as you're writing these notes out, make sure that you are trying to capture every idea, not necessarily every word or every sentence, okay? So it will be a lot more shorter on your notes than it is in my presentation here. And again, our topic is going to be on-demand writing, so make sure you write that onto your Cornell notes. Our essential question for today, what's our plan for on-demand writing? We're going to look at this in 4 steps. We're going to have the planning step, then the pre-writing step, then the actual writing step, and finally the revising and editing step. So let's go ahead and get started with the planning step. Now we're going to have these broken into different tasks. With the planning step, you'll see the numbered things. So we see the number 1 here. So each of the tasks is numbered just to help you keep track of things on your notes. So it'll be pretty smart for you to number them off in your notes as well, so you'll be able to tell if you've actually missed something. So our first task in the planning step is going to be write down the amount of time you have to complete the essay. Time is going to be really important for us during this process. So this is going to be the first time we see it. Make sure you're keeping track of the time, and you'll see it pop up a lot throughout this presentation. Our second task in the planning step is going to be look at the clock and determine the time for each of the steps. Note specifically when you should move on to the next step. Write this somewhere where you can see it as you create your essay. Now, we're going to allot different amounts of time for different things in our writing process. The pre-writing is going to take up 1/6 of the allotted time. The writing is going to take up 4/6 of the allotted time, or 2/3. The revising and editing is going to take up 1/6 of the allotted time. The third task of the planning step, glance at the clock periodically, and when time has elapsed, move on to the next step in the process. Go ahead and move on to the pre-writing step. Use approximately 1/6 of the allotted time, 10 minutes for a 60-minute essay, 5 minutes for a 30-minute essay to complete the following tasks. So again, we're keeping real close track of the time and how it's passing. Our first task in the pre-writing step, deconstruct the prompt, and this is something we're working on a lot in class right now. Read the prompt and circle action words and verbs. Number the tasks listed in the prompt. Now, speaking specifically about these action words and verbs, again, these are the things that the prompt is asking you to do as a writer. Not just every verb in the prompt, but every verb that you're being asked to do as the writer. So in other words, if it's telling you to discuss the history of something, you're going to write down the word discuss because that's what it wants you to do. Okay, let's move on to the second task. Create a plan. Choose a topic, create a visual cluster, list outline or notes detailing key points and evidence that will be included in the essay. Review prompt and check the outline. Check the outline addresses all tasks listed. So again, you're double checking to make sure it actually lines up with the prompt before we move on to actually writing. That's going to be important for us. Now we're going to move on to the writing step. We're going to use approximately 4/6 of the allotted time. That's 40 minutes for a 60-minute essay, 20 minutes for a 30-minute essay to complete the following tasks. The first task in the writing step, introduce your topic by rephrasing the question or prompt or repeating key words from the prompt in your first sentence. Get right to the heart of your essay with a clear thesis. Do not write a lengthy introduction and do not repeat yourself. Any repetition is simply going to waste time, and it's also going to make your essay seem a lot more clunky. And people grading it will be able to pick up on if you're just trying to fill space or not. So it just never looks good. It's always better to have a short, to the point paragraph than a long paragraph just to prove a point, okay? Our second task in the writing step, explain each point completely before going on to the next one. If you skip around, your answer will seem confusing and incomplete. Make sure each topic sentence relates to your thesis. And we're going to talk a lot about that in class, making sure everything connects back to our thesis, since the thesis is the heart. And our third task in the writing step, support your general statements with details, examples, and facts. Use specific people and events to show that you know your subject and to help your audience follow your line of thinking and reasoning. You must use examples even with a short essay. If your answer is 2 sentences long, make the first sentence a thesis and the second an example. Do not be afraid to think on paper. Some of your best ideas may develop as you write. Now, even though we have a really good plan going into our writing, if we think of something better or a better way to say something or a different example we didn't plan on using, feel free to use it. You're always going with the best possible idea, okay? And that doesn't mean that we don't plan. And our fifth task in the writing step, we're going to make it clear that you are moving on to another point by using transition words. These may include such as, besides, in addition, next, however, and although. There's going to be a lot more that we're going to go over in class. The sixth task in the writing step, conclude in a sentence or two when you feel you've covered everything. Don't simply repeat your opening sentence. Use some of the main ideas you brought up in your essay. And finally, stay aware of the time. So again, we're checking back with the time. So at this point, we should have completed all of our writing. Now, what we're going to go back and we're going to go back and do our revising and editing. We're going to use approximately 1/6 of the allotted time, 10 minutes for a 60-minute essay, 5 minutes for a 30-minute essay to complete the following tasks. So in other words, if you had an hour-long essay, this is going to be at the 50-minute mark. You should be able to move on to your revising and editing. Now, the first task that we have in our revising and editing step is going to be reread your completed essay and revise. We're going to go over a lot of revision strategies in class, so you'll definitely be prepared for this by the time our first actual on-demand writing assessment comes around. Our second task, make sure you have answered the question and have not strayed from the prompt. So again, we want to make sure that we're connecting everything back to our thesis, and our thesis connects to the prompt. Our third task, look for mistakes you might have made on the facts, dates, names, etc. If you need to make a correction, draw a single line through the old information and write the new information just above it. Don't waste time scribbling out old information. And what I always like to point out, these are not classified government documents. We don't need to completely black out everything that is a mistake. We simply need to draw a line through it so that the person reading it and grading it knows that that particular line does not count, okay? So you don't need to waste all that time scribbling it out. Our fourth task in the revising and editing step, check for complete ideas, clear thoughts, and details and explanations. Our fifth task in the revising and editing step, proofread for spelling, punctuation, and capitalization errors. And finally, our sixth task in the revising and editing step, make any needed corrections neatly and legibly. And that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for these Cornell notes. If you have any questions, feel free to email me again. My email is going to be timothy.leba2@aps.edu. You could also go to our class website, thebestclassintheworld.com, and contact me by clicking that little envelope in the bottom left-hand corner. Have a good one.